more condemnation of China's human rights record this morning. A report out from the Tibet Action Institute that says the Chinese government has been using policies to force Tibetan children as young as 4 years old into a vast system of colonial boarding schools. Freelance journalist Richard Kimber is with us in Hong Kong this morning. Richard, good morning. What are we learning in this report?
Yes, this report alleges that some 800 to 900,000 6 to 18-year-old Tibetans are being forced into state-run boarding schools, and an undisclosed number of younger kids, 4 to 5-year-olds, because information on those are less available. They say that these boarding schools are being forcibly run, that the kids are not being able to study traditional Tibetan education nor practice traditional Tibetan languages. Also, that the parents of these children are being forced and coerced into having their children taken away and sent to these schools, and that if they refuse, they're being pressured by the authorities that they'll be deemed to be protesters against the government, making many of those parents nervous to try and stand up and require that their children stay at home and be educated in a more traditional local way. So a great deal of concern from this report that this is a widespread campaign that the Action Institute says has been running for years and is not getting the type of coverage that it wants it to, which is why it's published this report around the same time that the US and Australia are calling for this diplomatic boycott against the Olympics.
So practices that have been going on for years, widespread, as you say, Richard, but practices that are not widely known. How have the schools, how has China been able to avoid any scrutiny of this for such a long time?
Well, typically the Chinese authorities have framed these types of education programs as an attempt to try and unify the country and also to offer educational opportunities to remote and ethnic minority populations that don't have the type of educational infrastructure that exists elsewhere in the huge Chinese mainland, because the country, of course, is so large. But the problem from the Action Institute's research seems to be that they just don't think there's been enough international access granted to see on the ground exactly what's taking place here. And these first-hand testimonies that they're receiving paint a very different picture from the one that the Chinese authorities are framing these schools to be. Let's take a listen to Ladon Tethong of the Tibetan Action Institute and about her concerns about international access.
They have locked Tibet down. They have effectively shut Tibet off from the world, shut Tibetans off from the world. They were imposing an unbelievably effective information blackout and lockdown. And we can't stop. The international community cannot stop requesting to get in.
But you can hear there her concerns that there's just not enough access, and she's calling on organisations such as the United Nations to keep pressuring the Chinese government to allow international inspectors to come and see exactly what's taking place, in a very similar way to the way that activists have been campaigning for access in the northwestern region of Xinjiang, which is specifically the principal area of concern that the US and Australia have both raised, justifying what they say is the reason for their diplomatic boycott of the Winter Games.
Richard, thank you very much. Richard Kimber is a freelance journalist there in Hong Kong, live with us today.